If you're the kind of maker who has tried a few small desktop routers, gotten frustrated with the limits of a 12-inch bed, and now wants something you can actually rely on for a weekend project or a small side business, you're in the right spot. You probably keep hearing about bigger is better, but you also know that a huge machine that sits in the garage and never gets used isn't a win. You want a CNC that feels solid, stays calibrated, and just works without you having to become a mechanical engineer overnight. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The first question most people ask themselves is, will this machine actually fit into my workshop and my budget, or am I buying a glorified piece of metal that will just collect dust? I've spent the past few weeks digging through forums, watching build videos, and reading the handful of reviews that do exist for the Genmitsu PROVerXL. The consensus is clear: this isn't a cheap hobby starter, but it also isn't a commercial-grade mill that costs 5 figures. It sits in a sweet spot where the price reflects a serious upgrade from the 30cm hobby kits, while still being approachable for a dedicated hobbyist. Let's talk about the most tangible part of any CNC, the work area. At 51.18 inches square, the PROVerXL gives you enough room to cut a full-size tabletop panel, carve a set of wooden gears, or mill a small aluminum bracket in one go. That's a leap from the cramped 12-inch workspaces you see on entry-level machines. The extra space isn't just a vanity metric, it changes the way you design. Instead of having to split apart into multiple pieces and glue them together later, you can mill a single piece, which reduces alignment errors and saves finishing time. The dual axes is another practical win. On a single head setup, you're limited to a fixed spindle height, which means you either sacrifice depth of cut or you have to manually re-zero the tool for each pass. With 2 axes, you can keep one head at a safe clearance while the other does the heavy lifting, then swap roles without stopping the program. In real-world terms, this translates to smoother transitions when you're doing pocketing on wood or drilling multiple holes at different depths in a metal plate. The time you save on re-zeroing adds up quickly, especially on production runs of a dozen or more parts. Now, the machine's smart side comes from the closed-loop stepper motor system. Most budget CNCs rely on open-loop steppers, which will keep moving even if the motor slips a step, resulting in a botched cut and a ruined piece of material. The closed-loop design on the PROVerXL monitors the motor's actual position and corrects any deviation in real time. For a woodworker who's carving a decorative panel, that means the design stays true to the CAD file even if the machine gets a little jostled. It's a safety net that you normally only see on pricier industrial units. Ball screw drive is another feature that feels like a luxury. Instead of the common lead screw, a ball screw reduces backlash and gives you smoother motion with less vibration. When you're cutting aluminum, that smoothness can be the difference between a clean edge and a chatter-filled finish that needs a second pass. In practice, I've seen hobbyists who switch from a standard screw to a ball screw report a noticeable reduction in surface roughness, especially on longer cuts. All these strengths do come with trade-offs. First, the sheer footprint of a 4x4 foot work envelope means you need a dedicated area, ideally a garage or a spare workshop. You can't just squeeze it onto a crowded desk. Second, the machine arrives as a fairly extensive kit. The frame is pre-welded, but you still have to install the ball screws, the dual Zs, and wire the electronics. The instructions are clear, but you'll need a few hours of focused assembly and a willingness to troubleshoot a loose cable here or a motor direction issue there. If you were hoping for a plug-and-play experience, this isn't it. Another practical consideration is the spindle. The PROVerXL does not come with a spindle, you'll need to purchase a compatible one separately. That adds to the total cost, but it also gives you flexibility. If you plan to work mostly with hardwoods, a 600-watt spindle is plenty. If you want to venture into light aluminum or copper, you'll need a more robust, possibly water-cooled spindle. The downside is that you have to research spindle compatibility, mount it correctly, and manage the extra wiring. For beginners, this can feel like an extra hurdle. Power consumption isn't a major issue, but the machine does draw a noticeable amount of current when both axes are moving. Make sure your circuit can handle the load, especially if you're plugging it into an older workshop outlet. It's a small detail, but the last thing you want is a tripped breaker in the middle of a long cut. So, who should consider the PROVerXL? If you're a serious hobbyist who has outgrown a 300mm CNC and you're looking to produce